Do you believe that will be enough to help buoy Republicans in the 2026 midterms?
I hope so. Now, the one thing that I worry about is that if you look over many, many years, I don't have the numbers, but the person that wins the presidency always seems to lose the midterms. I don't know why. It's crazy.
As his polls in general, and especially regarding the shutdown, turned genuinely atrocious, a cognitively impaired Donald Trump visibly panicked during a softball interview with the conservative One American News Network, in which he admits that he is concerned about the 2026 midterms, which is a hell of a thing to say given how desperately he has tried to rig those midterms in his favor. So you know he is freaking the hell out. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, just real quick, just to really drive this point home, to kind of set the stage. We're in day 2 of the government shutdown, the Trump-triggered government shutdown. And as Sahil Kapoor, a reporter for NBC, notes, who do Americans blame for the shutdown? The Washington Post, Marist, New York Times, Siena, Morning Consult. They're blaming Republicans. Now, that could change. It's entirely possible for Democrats to screw up the messaging war on this, but a majority are currently blaming Donald Trump and the Republican Party for this shutdown. So that provides some necessary context for what you're about to hear Trump say in, again, this ludicrous softball interview with the far-right One American News Network, in which Trump admits he's worried about the midterms. Take a look.
You mentioned that crime is going to be a major factor. You got your tax cuts done in half the amount of time it did last time, sir. You did it in December of 2017. Now you did it before July 4th here this time around. Looking ahead to 2026, do you believe that your response to combat violent crime and the amount of tax relief and economic success you've had, do you believe that will be enough to help buoy Republicans in the 2026 midterms?
I hope so. Now, the one thing that I worry about is that if you look over many, many years, I don't have the numbers, but the person that wins the presidency always seems to lose the midterms. I don't know why. It's crazy. Even presidents that did well, and there have been some, and I think we're at the top of the list in terms of doing well. Nobody's done what I've done.
Again, we'll finish this in just a second, but again, he's admitting, I mean, that's a hell of a thing. Donald Trump always likes to project strength or attempt to project strength even when, you know, he's losing or failing spectacularly, right? So for him to admit, like, yeah, I sure hope so, but man, I'm worried because incumbent presidents usually get their asses kicked in the midterms. That's true. The biggest modern midterm blowout that we've seen in the past several years was actually in 2018 when Donald Trump was president the first time. It was the 2018 midterms, and there was a massive blowout in favor of the Democratic Party. Now, I don't know that that's coming in 2026. Again, Trump is trying to rig the maps in his favor to prevent it, but despite all of the efforts that he's undertaken to rig the game in his favor, the fact that he's still panicking about this is just something worth noting, and it probably has to do with the polling that we discussed just a few seconds ago. But let's continue to let him lie about his record, and then we'll debunk it on the other side.
7 wars. We put out 7 wars. Now, it could be 8. You reported, you were there yesterday. It looks like the Middle East could very well be solved after 3,000 years approximately. We're going to have more than Gaza.
So Donald Trump is referring to his latest peace proposal between between Israel and Hamas. It has not been accepted. The previous ones have failed. We have no reason to believe this one will succeed. Perhaps it will, perhaps it won't, but he's already trying to mark it in the success column. We have, of course, dedicated multiple videos to debunking the lies about these 7 wars he ended. Mehdi Hassan from Zateo, friend of the show, progressive journalist, has debunked this aggressively, but Trump's just full of shit.
We're going to have Gaza plus peace, overall peace. That would be an amazing achievement. And then we'll get Russia taken care of. Somehow we're going to get that. I thought that would be an easy one. That's been a difficult one.
That one's hilarious because Trump promised on day 1 of his presidency, and according to some clips, he's like, listen, if I get elected, I'll have the Russia-Ukraine war wrapped up before Biden leaves office, before I'm actually inaugurated. And then in other clips, he said, on day 1, after I get inaugurated, give me 24 hours, I'll wrap this shit up. And he failed. He failed spectacularly. It's part of the reason we're starting to see a bit of a posture change at last with respect to Trump's position on Vladimir Putin, because he has now become convinced that Putin, who's infinitely more clever than Trump is, has played and humiliated Trump on the global stage for months, which of course he has.
5,000 people are being killed every single week. Soldiers, mostly soldiers, Russia and Ukrainian soldiers. But 7 different wars I ended. and it's soon going to be 8. And when you think about it, nobody's done anything like that. Then on top of that, we get you the largest tax cuts in history. People are doing better.
Which are disproportionately benefiting those who need it the least, like millionaires, multimillionaires, billionaires, multi-billionaires. The American people working in middle class and lower class Americans, they are receiving just table scraps in comparison because of Trump's one big beautiful bill.
Done anything like that. Then on top of that, we get you the largest tax cuts in history. People are doing better than they've ever done right now. We have no inflation. I inherited a mess, and now we have a country. I'll tell you, I was with the king of Saudi Arabia. He said, a year ago, you were in a dead country, and now you have we're the hottest country in the world.
It's one of his stock phrases. We're the hottest country on earth. The Biden economy has been reported by economists as the envy of the world. The fact of the matter is that the American economy on a macroeconomic level did extremely well compared to peer nations. So to the extent that we have the hottest country on earth, that was also the case under President Biden, number one. Number two, inflation is actually ticking upward on Trump's watch, not downward, so he's full of shit when he says that. I do want to play this one real quick because, again, there's some other clips to play, but I mentioned in the beginning that Donald Trump is cognitively impaired at various points during this interview, and I want to give you just one such example. Pay very close attention. It's some of the dumbest shit you'll ever hear an adult man, let alone an actual head of state, say on camera.
Look at North Carolina, where they had the horrible, it was like a flood, massive flood. It was a hurricane, but it was a water hurricane. Nobody's ever seen anything like it, where land, big, beautiful pieces of land were out in the middle of a lake. The whole thing was surrounded by water. They were devastated. I got in and we took care of North.
So hurricanes, by definition, involve water. He's like, so it's one of those water hurricanes, not like a regular hurricane. It's a water hurricane. Those say it's like the wettest. It's the wettest in terms of water. That's, by the way, is a quote from his first term. To describe a hurricane in his first term, he would say it was one of the wettest in terms of water. This guy's just an idiot. He really is. He's just objectively stupid. And to hear him ramble about the most absurd things. He's referring to Hurricane Helene. And no, Donald Trump did not make Hurricane Helene's recovery efforts any better. As a matter of fact, he actively made the recovery efforts during President Biden worse, even though Republican governors in Georgia and in South Carolina praised the President Biden, for, basically giving FEMA, like, do whatever you need to. The federal government will cover it. Doesn't matter if it's red state or blue state. Meanwhile, Trump actively made it worse and was spreading disinformation about the Biden administration's hurricane recovery efforts. It was just disgusting and despicable. But to hear him talk about hurricanes and other sort of meteorological and climatological phenomena, stunning shit. I mean, he just doesn't know what he's talking about. It's one of those water hurricanes. You're so stupid. Move on. Here's another clip.
There was an OMB memo going around suggesting that there might be firings during the shutdown. Do you think that will happen if the shutdown goes for a little bit of time, sir?
Well, there could be firings, and that's their fault. And it could also be other things. I mean, we could cut projects that they wanted, favorite projects, and they'd be permanently cut. So you could say, a lot of people are saying Trump wanted this, that I wanted this closing, and I didn't want it. But a lot of people are saying it because I'm allowed to cut things that should have never been approved in the first place. And
so Donald Trump, again, not so subtly signaling that he intends to use government discretion during a government shutdown to hurt the Democratic Party, Democratic politicians, liberals, progressives, Democratic voters, Democratic constituents, blue cities, and blue states. He's repeatedly made this mobster-like threat to try to force Democrats to bend the knee to him. And so far, it has not worked. Hopefully, it does not. And the American people need to recognize this because, again, we've never heard, there's never been a Democratic president who has threatened red states, Republican voters, or people who disagree with him during a potential government shutdown. President Obama didn't do that. President Biden didn't do that. Hey, if you cause a government shutdown, I'm going to use discretionary power to squeeze West Virginia or Alabama or Mississippi, because Democratic presidents are just objectively by far morally superior to Donald Trump. And so the electorate needs to understand that, and Democrats also need to be making that clear. Again, don't just assume facts speak for themselves. The polling right now looks terrible for Trump and better for Democrats. That could flip. Most media is either openly right-wing in the mainstream or alternate space, so Fox News in the mainstream, OAN, Newsmax, or in the alternate media, as successful as this channel is. I mean, I'm a baby. I'm a runt in comparison to not just like bigger progressive channels like Midas Touch and Adam Mockler and Luke Beasley and Jack Cocciarella, Brian Tyler Cohen, David Pakman, but they in turn are compared to Megyn Kelly and the Daily Wire and all this stuff, like we are just outgunned in the media space. And so if Democrats aren't relentless and persuasive not just one or two, if they're not all out there in force, making the case on camera in mainstream and alternate media of why this is a Trump-triggered shutdown, those polls could change on a dime, okay? But again, he's making not so subtle threats. However, it says something that despite all of that, Donald Trump is publicly panicking in a softball interview about the projected likelihood that he will lose the 2026 midterms, all else being equal. And that's, again, following aggressive steps by him to unethically rig the rules in his favor. So I think he has to understand on some level, on some deep, insecure level, that he has screwed this up spectacularly, and you saw a glimpse of it just there. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.